Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. For the last month, my marriage felt more like a formality than a relationship. I didn't notice it at first. Sometimes life gets busy, you get tired, timing's off, people get in a funk. That's what I told myself, anyway. But when days turned into weeks, and the silence between us grew thick enough to suffocate, I couldn't keep pretending it was nothing. It started subtly. My wife, Jenna, would pull away slightly when I reached for her hand. No kisses goodbye. No leaning into me on the couch like she used to when we watched our crime shows. I'd reach out in bed, and she'd turn, slowly, like she didn't want to make it obvious, but didn't care enough to hide it either. I kept brushing it off, telling myself she was just tired or stressed. But one night, I tried to hold her, really hold her, and she went rigid in my arms like I'd done something wrong just by wanting to be close. And then she said it. "You have no rights over me." Just like that. Flat voice. No anger. No warmth. Nothing. Like she was reading a line from a legal document. I sat up in bed, stunned. "Jenna, what does that even mean?" She didn't even look at me. "We're married. That doesn't mean I'm yours. You don't get to expect anything from me. Not affection. Not intimacy. Nothing." I wish I could tell you I said something strong in response. Then I stood up for myself. But honestly, I just sat there, watching her scroll through her phone like the conversation hadn't even happened. My mouth opened, closed. I didn't know what to say. She fell asleep easily that night. I didn't. I lay there in the dark, listening to the soft click of her breathing, thinking back to who she used to be. The girl who used to pull me into her lap when I was having a bad day. Who used to laugh when I kissed her neck while she was cooking. Who used to whisper, "You're my safe place." Now she barely even looked at me. Over the next few days, I tried everything short of begging. Thought maybe if I made her laugh again, we'd reconnect. I cooked her favorite dinner, salmon with dill butter and mashed cauliflower. She nodded a thank you, didn't eat half of it, and said she had emails to send. I cleaned the house, took her car in for servicing, booked a weekend getaway. She canceled it because of work. But it wasn't work. It wasn't fatigue. It was something else. Every effort I made was met with a wall. Not even anger, which would have been easier to deal with. Just this, detachment. Like I wasn't a person to her anymore. Just someone she shared an address with. A few times I tried talking to her. Real talks. "Jenna, are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Is this about something I did?" "No. You're pulling away from me." "I'm not pulling away. I'm creating space." Creating space. Like I was a contaminant. I asked her if she wanted to see someone. A counselor, a therapist, anything. "I don't need help. You just need to learn boundaries." Boundaries. That was her new favorite word. Used it like a blade. I started sleeping on the couch, more out of self-preservation than anything else. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., wondering what I was even doing. Wondering how long I was supposed to live like this, orbiting around a woman who clearly didn't want me near her anymore. But then I'd remember our wedding vows. The house we bought together. The little paper flowers she made on our first date that still sat on my nightstand. I kept telling myself, this was just a season. A rough patch. Every marriage has them, right? Until I overheard her on the phone one night, pacing the kitchen while she thought I was asleep. "No, I'm not worried. He doesn't have the guts to leave. He still thinks he can fix me or something." She laughed. And that was the moment something snapped. Not out of rage, but out of clarity. She was right about one thing. I had been holding on. But not anymore. After hearing her laugh on that call, so casual, so sure of herself, I sat in the dark for almost an hour. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Just listened to the hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock on the wall. She didn't know I was awake. Didn't know I heard her say I didn't have the guts. And maybe until that moment, she was right. For weeks, I'd been holding back, hoping, rationalizing her behavior. I'd convinced myself she was just going through something. That I needed to be patient, understanding. But now I wasn't even a person in her eyes. I was a prop, a soft cushion in her life she could lean against when convenient, ignore when bored, and insult without consequence. The next morning, I left for work early. I couldn't sit across from her at the kitchen table and pretend everything was normal. I drove in silence, parked in the farthest corner of the lot, and stared out at nothing for a while. Then I picked up my phone. "Hey, Brian," I said when my old college friend answered. "You still doing family law?" He was quiet for a second. "Yeah. You good, man?" "I think I need to file something." "Annulment, maybe." Silence again. Are you sure? No. But I said, yeah. He didn't ask for details. Just told me to come by after work. Said we'd figure out the best approach. And I appreciated that. Someone willing to help without needing the full tragic backstory. When I walked into Brian's office that evening, the receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. I guess I looked like a man who'd finally broken. We talked for over an hour. I explained what had been happening, her words, her behavior, the recording-level coldness of it all. Brian listened, took notes, and asked one question I hadn't expected. Do you think she's doing this to push you into leaving? I blinked. What do you mean? Well, in some cases, he said, spouses don't want to file for divorce themselves. So they provoke the other person. That way, they get to play victim and avoid accountability. That idea landed like a lead weight in my stomach. Was that what she was doing? Sabotaging everything so I'd be the one to call it quits? I'd never thought of Jenna as manipulative before. But lately, I wasn't sure I knew her at all. I left his office with a folder full of paperwork and a deadline. The next few days, I acted normal. Not because I was pretending, but because I needed time to process the reality of what I was doing. Annulment, not divorce. Because this didn't feel like a marriage anymore. And if I was honest with myself, maybe it never really had been. Maybe I'd just been too hopeful, too eager to believe that effort and loyalty were enough to keep something alive. Jenna didn't notice the shift in me. Or if she did, she assumed it was just me respecting her space. She had no idea that every time she walked past me like I was invisible, she made my decision easier. Then one night, she walked in from wherever she'd been, still wouldn't say where, and I looked up from the couch and said it. I'm filing for annulment. Her bag dropped to the floor. What? I've already started the paperwork. She blinked. Once. Twice. You're not serious. I am. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. You think you're going to end this on your terms? I'm not ending anything, I said quietly. You already did. I'm just making it official. That's when her face changed. Not sadness. Not fear. But something sharper. Something calculating. She crossed her arms, and that same smirk I'd heard over the phone curled at her lips. You won't go through with it. You're angry. You'll calm down. You always do. I didn't argue. Didn't fight. I just stared at her. And something in my eyes must have finally registered, because she lost the smile. Fine, she said, grabbing her bag. Do what you want. Then she left. And for the first time in weeks, I sat there in silence and felt a flicker of peace. But I didn't know then that her exit wasn't surrender. It was recalculation, and that the next move would be hers. For the next few days, it was quiet. Too quiet. She didn't bring up the annulment again. She didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't even ask questions. Just floated around the house like nothing had changed. The same woman who once barked, "You have no rights over me," was now humming in the kitchen, tossing casual good mornings at me like they meant something. And then came the shift. One morning, I walked into the living room and found her curled up on the couch in one of my old t-shirts. She used to steal those in the early years, before everything got cold. I didn't say anything, just grabbed my coffee. But I watched her from the corner of my eye. Do you remember that little bed and breakfast in Asheville? She asked suddenly, without looking up. I froze mid-sip. That place with the lemon pancakes and the weird soap, she added, with a tiny smile. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I remember. She turned to look at me. Eyes soft. We were good then. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence did all the talking. That night, she sat next to me on the couch for the first time in weeks. Close. Almost touching. Her hand grazed my thigh when she reached for the remote. Not an accident. She laughed at something I said. Laid her head on my shoulder during a movie. Woke up early the next morning and made coffee. Even kissed my cheek before leaving for work. It was surreal. Like someone had swapped her out for a softer version of herself. But I wasn't buying it. You don't go from, "You have no rights over me," to lemon pancakes and soft kisses, unless you're trying to rework the story. Rebrand the narrative. Especially when your husband just filed for annulment. So I played along. Acted warm. Polite. Guarded. And I started paying attention. Her phone was never left unattended now. Always in her hand or face down on a counter. Password changed. Notifications silenced. Her laptop was closed and put away the second I walked into a room. And her schedule? Suddenly packed with errands and appointments. It was too clean. Too controlled. Then I noticed something else. She started talking about what the annulment would do to our image. Her words, not mine. Image. Not the marriage. Not the love. The optics. You know how it'll look, she said one night, folding laundry with surgical precision. People will think something happened. Like we weren't stable. Like one of us was unfaithful. She looked up at me when she said it, holding eye contact just long enough to register the implication. I nodded, slowly. Right. Wouldn't want that. She smiled, pleased. Like we were partners in damage control now. But inside, I was fuming. This wasn't about love. This was about control. She didn't care that the marriage had rotted from the inside. She cared about being seen as the one who walked away clean. The one who kept it classy. The one who wasn't to blame. And my annulment? That ruined the script. Because you can't play the victim when the other person files first. I started digging. I didn't want to believe me. I wanted to just walk away clean. But something about the way she flipped her behavior made me think there was more going on. Like she wasn't just trying to stop the annulment. She was trying to erase the reason for it. I checked her email history, what little access I had left. Nothing. Until I saw an old message that hadn't been deleted. It was from her friend Talia, months ago. The subject line. Keep records. Don't confront. That's when I knew. This wasn't spontaneous. She'd been laying the groundwork for something. Something legal. Something ugly. And I had no idea how deep it went. But I was done being a prop in her plan. The next day, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my old friend Logan, who used to do freelance cybersecurity. He owed me a favor. Think you can help me dig through a locked iCloud backup? I asked. His answer was fast, flat, and dangerous. Absolutely. Logan didn't ask why. He didn't need to. We met that night at a quiet bar on the edge of town. No one I knew would be there, and Logan always liked operating in the shadows. He slid his tablet onto the table like it was a briefcase full of explosives. You're lucky, he said, sipping a Coke. Most people sync everything to the cloud without even realizing it. Texts, notes, audio clips, even deleted files. If you know where to look. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Within 20 minutes, he had pulled down an entire shadow archive from Jenna's old iCloud backups. Stuff she thought she'd deleted. Stuff she thought I'd never see. I scrolled through slowly, heart pounding in my ears. At first, it was nothing. Just exchanges with her friend Talia, venting about our marriage, complaining about how emotionally draining I was. The usual one-sided story. But then I hit something that made my stomach flip. A voice memo. I tapped play. Her voice. My wife's voice. Calm. Cold. If I push him far enough, he'll snap. And when he does, I'll record it. All I need is one clip of him yelling, getting aggressive, anything. I've already talked to Kendra's lawyer. If I can prove emotional intimidation, I can claim spousal distress. And I'll get alimony. I didn't move. Didn't blink. The bar around me disappeared. It was just her voice. I don't care if he walks. I just want it to be on my terms. Another voice, Talia's. You're playing with fire, Jen. I know. But I'm tired of pretending. Let him be the one who quits. I'll have everything lined up. There were 3 more memos like that. Each one laid out pieces of the plan. Push me away, starve the marriage, bait me into losing it. If she could catch me in a moment of weakness, she could reframe the story and leave with a sympathetic legal advantage. And then came the messages. Screenshots of half-written drafts where she referred to me as unstable. One even said, if he files, I'll reverse it. Then I'll say he tried to force me into giving up my rights. Play the victim. Court eats that stuff up. It was all there. A full campaign, designed to frame me, not for something I did, but for something she wanted people to believe I do. And then, buried deep in a hidden notes folder, another plan. Jenna's diary of evidence. Fabricated text summaries. Logs of arguments that never happened. Memories she had written down to sound real, complete with timestamps. Little stories she could reference under oath, like June 12th, he told me I was worthless. I cried in the bathroom for an hour. July 7th, slammed a door in my face. Told me no one would ever love me. None of those things happened. Not one. She was building a case. From scratch. I looked at Logan, who just shook his head slowly. She went full scorched earth. I nodded, throat dry. Can you download everything? Already did. He handed me a drive. This stuff could kill any credibility she has in court. You need to be smart, careful, and one step ahead. I thanked him and left. Didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the dark again, staring at the walls, trying to process the fact that the woman I married hadn't just stopped loving me, she'd been engineering my downfall. I thought I was pulling away to protect myself, but she was way ahead of me. And now that she realized the annulment derailed her setup, I knew she was going to try and flip the script, probably paint herself as the forgiving one, the wife who fought for the marriage while I gave up. I couldn't let that happen, so I came up with a plan. I booked a counseling session at a neutral location, told her I wanted to try, told her maybe we could talk things through with someone in the room. She jumped on it like a lifeline. The bait was set. The therapist wasn't a therapist. It was a legal mediator. And sitting next to him, with every file, audio clip, and digital receipt neatly organized, would be my attorney. The final act wasn't going to be explosive. It was going to be clinical, and I was going to let her walk right into it. The day of the counseling session, Jenna dressed like she was walking into a rom-com climax. Soft makeup, hair curled, that gray blouse she knew I liked. "You're doing the right thing," she told me as we got in the car. "Even if we end up splitting, it's good that we're talking. Like adults." She squeezed my hand, smiled. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have believed her. We pulled into a discreet office park, neutral, professional, nothing suspicious. She didn't ask a single question. Not when I held the door for her. Not when we walked into a glass-walled conference room with 2 chairs on either side and a man in a navy suit waiting by a laptop. She didn't even blink when he introduced himself as Marcus Long, mediation specialist. Only when Brian, my attorney, stepped into the room behind her, did the smile falter. She looked at me. "What's this?" I sat down calmly. "It's time for transparency." Marcus gestured to the seats. "We're here today to review intentions, documented concerns, and all digital communications relating to the dissolution of your marriage." Jenna's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" I looked at her. No anger. No heat. Just the truth. "This is your moment of clarity." I opened the file folder in front of me. Voice memos. Text logs. The fake abuse diary. Brian had already prepared copies. Logan's forensic certification was stapled on top. Jenna glanced at the papers, then back at me, and I saw it. The panic. The mental math. The rapid processing of just how deep I'd gone. "Those are fake," she snapped. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "They were retrieved from your encrypted iCloud archive. Would you like to dispute their origin formally?" She didn't respond. "You planned this," I continued. "You didn't fall out of love. You didn't get distant. You constructed a case, one you thought would hold up in court. All I did was file an annulment. You were ready to destroy me." She started. "No," I cut in. "You don't get to talk now. Not here. Not today." Brian slid her a copy of the settlement documents. "No alimony. No shared assets. No defamation suits permitted. You sign this today," he said, "or we take it to court with everything we have. And believe me, we'll win." She stared at the documents like they were foreign, like she couldn't read them through the fog of her own collapsing scheme. "You said I wouldn't have the guts," I told her quietly. "You were right. I didn't." Then I nodded toward the folder. "But that man? That man does." She left with shaking hands and a blank face. Didn't even try to cry. I walked out calmly. Clean. Free. But there was another path I could have taken. If I had confronted her the night I heard that voicemail, if I'd stormed into the kitchen, thrown accusations, demanded answers, she would have turned it on me in a heartbeat. I can still see it. The scream. The recording. Her trembling voice. "He's unstable. He threatened me." One clip. One fake diary entry. One manipulated friend to testify she was scared. That's all it would have taken. And I'd be sitting in front of a judge, begging to see my dog, let alone keep the house. It nearly happened. All because I almost reacted emotionally. I've often imagined a different outcome, one where I never filed at all. One where I waited too long. Where her sweetness trickled back in, just enough to lull me. Where we started going out again, making love once a week, pretending things were better. But behind the scenes, the evidence kept piling up. Her script sharpened. Her witnesses lined up. And then one day, a sheriff's deputy at the door. A restraining order. Claims of emotional harm. Her crying as she explained how she feared for her safety. Friends nodding along. A fabricated timeline that painted me as the monster. In that version of the story, she wins. Even if none of it is true. And I'd be another man labeled angry, controlling, damaged. But that's not what happened. What happened was this. I saw her mask slip. I listened. I waited. And then I walked her into a room she thought she controlled and locked the doors behind her. That was the day I stopped being the man who begged for affection and became the man who walked away on his terms, not hers. never hers again.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.